world of coffee is not only about beans or a cup of drink, but also sweets, desserts, and other goodies that go along with coffee. One of the softest combinations with a cup of cappuccino or latte, of course, is the famous panettone, an Italian New Year's invention that is now mega popular all over the world. But lovers of coffee and Italian culture are a little confused in their understanding what is this panettone, and why is it sometimes called Pandoro, or why for Easter they start to call it differently. In this video, you'll get answers to these questions, and also you will learn out how to properly serve panettone and how and with what it is usually consumed. Well, let's immediately understand the main thing. Italians have two seasons in which their lovely sweet cakes appear: Easter in the spring and Christmas with New Year in the winter. The sweetness for Easter is called colomba or colomba di Pasqua. The winter season instead is represented by not one, but two sweet masterpieces at once. One for Christmas, it is called Pandoro, and the second one for New Year, with the cake named panettone. So let's repeat. For Easter is colomba, which means dove in Italian. For Christmas, Pandoro. Pane d'oro in Italian is golden bread. And for New Year, there is panettone, whose name also comes from the word pane, bread, and means big bread, although the whole world has long called this creation by its Italian name. They differ from each other in that the colomba shape corresponds to its name and looks like a dove spreading its wings. Colomba is always topped with icing and almonds. Pandoro is not covered with anything, but only sprinkled with powdered sugar, and panettone in turn generally has just a cracked crust on top. No topping, no powdered sugar. How could it be, you say? We saw a million types of panettone with chocolate or with decorations on top. Yes, that's true. Today, panettone and Pandoro are produced in thousands of different designs and fillings. But now we are talking specifically about the classic, original versions of these creations, well known and respected by all Italians. This is roughly similar to what happened with the espresso drink. Today it can be prepared in hundreds of variants around the world, either in a huge glass or in the form of a cocktail or with some kind of decorations. But in Italy, espresso is always a miniature, classically incomplete cup of coffee. As in coffee, all these modern cakes novelties are called creative or special, exactly like specialty coffee. Because the original panettone classico, like Pandoro classico or Colomba classica, is currently officially protected by Italian law with hard-coded rules. Such, for example, as using only natural yeast and butter, and only fresh egg yolks. And if a product does not meet at least one of the approved criteria, then it is forbidden to call it the noble name of panettone. You can only use descriptions like New Year's sweets or Christmas cake. There are separate names for small: panettone, Pandoro, and colomba, panettoncino, pandorino, and colombina. Well, you can recognize a colomba by its shape of a dove. Let's now understand the difference between the main New Year's competitors, panettone and Pandoro. In principle, everything is simple here too. You just need to know that the panettone is similar in shape to the cylinder, with a small dome at the top. Pandoro, on the other hand, looks like a truncated trapezoid and always has the shape of an octagonal star, reminiscent of the Star of Bethlehem. This is clearly visible if you look at it from above. The second element that distinguishes panettone and Pandoro are their fillings. In terms of the type of dough used, both sweets are similar, but in the classic panettone, there is always what Italians call candichi, that is, candied fruits, raisins, and small pieces of orange peel. Then, in the classic Pandoro, there is never anything inside, only dough. On this basis, in Italy itself, an ongoing struggle has traditionally been alleged. Supporters of panettone, as indeed most foreigners, argue that candied fruits add flavor to panettone, and thanks to them, it becomes tastier. and supporters of Pandoro angrily complain about 2 dried raisins and 2 sweet candied fruits, which break the taste of their Pandoro delicate bread. This dilemma always divides the Italians sitting at the Christmas table into 2 groups: those who prefer panettone and those who cannot imagine Christmas without Pandoro. Despite all the controversy, statistics at the national level still show that 77% of Italians prefer panettone during the New Year season. Of course, the division into Christmas and New Year cakes is rather arbitrary. The time difference between these holidays is too short, and this does not mean at all that you are prohibited from buying a panettone for Christmas or eating a Pandoro after New Year. By the way, Italians have a fairly clear date to finish their Christmas sweets. This is February 3rd, the day that is the feast of Saint Blaise. According to the legend, if you finish eating panettone on this very day, Saint Blaise will keep the illness away from you. Panettone and Pandoro also differ in their history. Panettone was born in the 15th century in Milan. Documentary evidence of its existence dates back to 1606, when the first Milanese-Italian dictionary was published, in which the sweet Christmas cake was called panettone de Daneda. There are several versions about the origin of the cake's name. The so-called romantic version says that panettone, pan di Antonio, was invented for his beloved by a Milanese baker's apprentice named Antonio. According to another version, panettone comes from the Milanese dialect, pan del tonde, which is translated as bread of luxury. But the most famous legend says that it was invented by a certain Tony, a humble assistant cook in the kitchen of the Duke of Sforza. On Christmas Eve, the ducal family's chef accidentally burned a sweet cake prepared for a festive banquet. Then Tony donated the yeast, which he had set aside for his own Christmas celebration. He mixed it with flour, eggs, sugar, raisins, and candied fruits, and kneaded everything several times until a very loose and voluminous dough was obtained. The result was an unprecedented success, and in honor of its creator, the Duke of Sforza named this cake Pan de Toni. It can be considered that the real evolution in panettone was made by the Milanese confectioner Angelo Motta, who transformed the dough yeast technology, turning it into a complex 20-hour procedure. And the whole process of making panettone takes up to 3 days. Angelo Motta changed the cake baking form from a low, more like bread, to the high domed one, well familiar to us today. Interestingly, since the panettone is not completely baked in the oven and remains soft, one of its final phases is called resting, when the panettone is hung upside down so that its dome hangs down rather than shrinks when the cake is cooled. Angelo Motta played an incredible role in the development of panettone as an iconic Italian sweet, and the name of the company Motta at the beginning of the 20th century was actually synonymous with the word panettone. By the way, being a genius marketer and businessman, it was Motta who in the 50s of the last century created another sweet masterpiece for Italians, though in a different season of the year, for Easter. Yes, the 𝗕𝗢𝗙𝗏 is also his invention. As for the Pandoro, unlike the Milanese panettone, it was created in Verona, at the time when Shakespeare wrote his Romeo and Juliet. A sweet bread which served as the prototype for Pandoro already existed in Verona. Moreover, it has existed since the 13th century. It was called Nadalin, and today, along with Pandoro, you can still taste it in Verona. It also has a characteristic star shape, but Nadalin is lower than Pandoro. The modern Pandoro appeared in the 19th century as a result of a refinting of Nadalin and was the fruit of the efforts of the Veronese pastry chef Domenico Melegatti and the Verona artist Angelo Dal Oca. Their joint brainchild was patented in 1894. It should be noted that the name of this sweet masterpiece has nothing to do with the herring of ancient Greek myth Pandora. No, in this case it is a mixture of two other words, pan, bread, and doro, golden, that is, golden bread. The fact is that at the time of the Renaissance, loaves of bread at princely banquets were decorated with the finest sheets of gold. But modern Pandoro fully lives up to its name, thanks to its light yellow color, due to the large amount of butter and yolk used. As we already know, traditional Pandoro, unlike panettone, does not contain any candied fruits or raisins in its filling, but sprinkling it with powdered sugar is a must. There is even a joke that there are so many disappointments in life, but one of the biggest is the moment when you open the Pandoro box and do not find a snow-white bag of powdered sugar inside. The Pandoro success followed the path of panettone. It also quickly spread throughout the country, gradually becoming an all-Italian dessert. Italian immigrants played a large role in the distribution of Christmas cakes, spreading this wonderful sweet tradition all over the world, in much the same way as it happened with a cup of miniature espresso, which has become both business and fashion for the whole planet. At the present time, Italian bakers produce more than 100 million panettone and Pandoro cakes every Christmas, worth around 300 million euros. Interestingly, in Italy, the word panettone is used in the name of another Christmas phenomenon. Cinepanettone is the name for the New Year's comedies that Italian film companies release annually during the Christmas period. These films have long been for the country as much a tradition as sweet cakes. The Italians also use the word panettone for road dividers because of their shape similarity. Well, let's move on to the practical side of the question: how to open, serve, and store panettone. Panettone loves warmth, therefore in no case should it be stored in the refrigerator or on the balcony in winter. And you should certainly not serve it cold. Many Italian experts advise to warm up the panettone a little before serving. However, this must be done very carefully, so as not to dry it out. But in general, it is better to keep it in a very warm place or near a heat source. Please take this advice seriously. After all, it is enough to once compare a cold panettone with a warmed one to easily feel how much it loses its taste, texture, and aroma. Store panettone in a tightly closed bag, never leaving it open. Slicing a Pandoro or panettone is a whole art. The main thing to remember here is that first you should always remove the paper form in which the panettone is baked, both the side strip and the bottom, and only then start cutting it. Otherwise, the cut pieces will stick to the baked part of the bottom and come off in uneven, unaesthetic form. The second very important nuance is the knife. Italians cut panettone not with an ordinary flat knife, but only with a bread knife, the one that has teeth. Because if you cut a good soft panettone with an ordinary flat knife, it simply squeezes when pressed and tears into pieces. You need to cut panettone, keeping the knife parallel to the table. Properly cut pieces of panettone, and especially Pandoro, are beautiful and aesthetic. From one panettone, it usually weighs 1 kilogram. Normally, 12 slices are obtained, approximately 80 grams each. As you already know, the classic Pandoro or panettone are most often served without any additives. Although in recent years, custard or hot chocolate has often become a companion to the Christmas cake. And outside of Italy, it can be jam, syrup, or even condensed milk. When it comes to drinks, you should know that neither Pandoro nor panettone can be combined with dry wines or brewed champagne. It can be accompanied by semi-sweet champagne, but Italians generally prefer to consume their New Year's sweetness with vino passito, sweet wine made from raisins, or with muscat wines. Their rule here is simple: The panettone is laid out on plates with a fork, but they eat it exclusively with the hands. No one ever cuts the served piece with a knife. An exception is made only in cases when panettone is served with custard or chocolate. Both Pandoro and panettone represents a whole world of emotions and feelings. There are those who eat it like a slice of cake, and there are those who slowly crumble it, looking among the multicolored treasures of raisins and candied fruits. But everyone, without exception, can help but admire its soft taste, insane aroma, and the gliding of its crust, which looks like either a dome or a mantle hiding some kind of secret underneath, which perhaps is the main secret of Christmas.